Okay, audio version 2. Little bit closer with the microphone. Yeah, any harder and I will start clipping as well, so I'm not gonna tune it up any harder than this. So yeah, where was I? First we do a little bit color, channels, etc. video. Next, a bit of color theory, color harmony, and we will end with basically going through all the color effects in Resolume and explaining them one by one, how you can use them. And in the color theory part, I will also do a little bit about VJ specific VJ theory, so to say. Little bit about myself. I used to be a VJ, doing a lot. I've been a resident VJ at some clubs, did some festivals, as well as some art stuff I'm gonna show off, because Resolume, you can use a Resolume, of course, is known for VJing, but you can also use it for more art installations. So here's a little image of me building an art installation, interactive art machine with Resolume. This was in a museum for culture and anthropology museum, basically. I did that, and this was at a university. So we got portraits from old professors, and from all these professors, like from really long time ago, and we put them in. We mapped them into this video, these picture frames, and put distortion over them, etc. Very simple installation, but yeah, there's some applications besides VJing for Resolume. And I will be doing videos in the future here as well, going a little bit more into this stuff. More as a Resolume project. There are going to be Resolume project videos in which I do, let's build a audio video performance with Resolume, for example, or let's hook up a Connect and processing to Resolume and see how that goes. So that's going to be for the future as well as another live stream we'll be doing monthly called Get Juicy, but you'll see what that's going to be in the future. So let's get started. Color basics. For most of you in the stream, this is probably familiar territory, but I still want to run it through. Let's start with the color picker. Here I made a solid color from the source menu. And if we go down here, you see the picker. You can select whatever color you want by moving this up. More people using it for Resolume for installations. Awesome. Send us some of your stuff. I'm really curious what you're making. Live virtual production. Cool. Awesome. So this is the regular picker. And we also have the, this is sort of a screen picker. So if you move anywhere on the screen, you can select that color. You want that, or you want that. But you can also overlay it on another screen. So let's grab Adobe Color Wheel, and I'll do 50-50 screen. Hope you guys can see this, yes. You can pick stuff. For example, here I use Adobe Color Screen. The link to Adobe's Color Screen is in the description below. And you can use Adobe Color Screen to basically make a color harmony. So let's say I want here, and it will give you colors that match nicely together. And you can use the color picker then on this screen. Oh, why is it making white? What am I doing wrong? Oh. Huh, it worked. Fail. Yes, it's probably something to do with live streaming and using the color picker at the same time. If I put it in a second screen, it works. So yeah, that's Adobe Color Wheel you can use to create harmonies. Then we move on to the hue, saturation, and brightness stuff. Well, this is probably familiar territory. Hue is basically the tint, the color you're going to use. Saturation, how much color, how the intensity of the color basically, and brightness is how bright your color are. The alpha value is how much the alpha of your color, but I'll talk a little bit more about that in a later part. RGB is basically the same way to create a color as well, but using the red, the green, and the blue. If you turn everything to 255, you're gonna get white. Turn everything to 0, you're gonna get black. So you will mostly use this if you know exactly what you want, or you know you want a very pure mix. So let's say I want to have exactly the half of this, and get really pure colors, or if you have something like an RGB code or something, you can use it over. And then we move on to the last modus, that's the palette mode. We'll see a lot of palette use today. Palettes are basically preset colors, a preset you can make. We have a bunch of presets. That's a sort of cool thing later on. You can already download it in the video description. There is a zip file in the video description where you can download color palettes that are basically color harmonies. We'll talk later about color harmony, but these presets, you can load them into Resolume, and then you can use these scales like a monochromatic, for example. And then you can select the colors from here. But we're going to do a lot more fun stuff with the palette later on. Let's have a quick talk about channels. Here I made a gradient, stepped angular gradient. And I want to talk about these little buttons. These are the channels, and you can toggle each channel in Resolume of each clip on and off. Each clip in Resolume will have an RGB channel. Not all clips have an alpha value, but I'll get to that in a minute. And you can turn off channels if you want. So if I turn the red off, I eliminate all red. You see the colors that are using red also shift. The pink color is using red in conjunction with blue. As soon as the red channel disappears, only blue remains. Same for green. And if we remove everything, and we get our colors back. This can be handy to map to a key, for example, if you want to do a very quickly turning on and off a channel as a strobe effect, for example. So next, let's talk about alphas. So let's start by what is alpha. An alpha is transparency in video. That's the easiest way to look at this. So here I have this little shape made and a color in the background. This shape has an alpha channel, the transparency around it. And if I turn the alpha channel off, the black becomes actual black, and I lose my background. And now I have to use a mixer to mix between two layers. Having alpha is always awesome because you can layer video on top of each other without having to mix the channels. So here we have, we also have it for video and for images. So the first video here, it's a video from some white dancers. As you can see here, the video does not have an alpha channel. This is because it's rendered without an alpha channel. In your video software, if you're using After Effects or you're using Adobe Premiere, you can always set whether you want to export with or without an alpha. And of course, after you do that, you use Resolume LE to convert it to a DXV format, so it runs better in Resolume. So if it's not available, you can also not switch it. I saw a question about what is the blue Resolume shortcut. In the bottom, that's Resolume Avenue. So we have Arena and Avenue in the bottom. But currently I'm running in Arena. But everything I'm doing in this video today, you can do either in Arena or in Avenue, it doesn't matter. There's no fancy stuff today. Yes. Yeah, we have Zoltan and Christoph in the comments. These are my colleagues, and they will help you with questions, so I don't have to look at the comment section all the time. Thank you, Zoltan and Christoph. So yeah, back to the video. This is a clip without alpha. Normally, if you render something out, you will render it with an alpha. If a clip has an alpha, then you get a result like this. This is a video from one of our packs. And then you have the transparency, and if I switch it on and off, etc. This is very useful when you want to make masks. I will do a video on masking later, but yeah, this is for the video. In the bottom you have something that's called a pre-multiplied and straight alpha. This is determined on how you export from your video program. So if you use Adobe Premiere and you use the pre-multiplied alpha export in Premiere, you should also use pre-multiplied alpha in Resolume. Pre-multiplied alpha is the most commonly used, so that's also what it's set to, and it basically always works. So moving on to JPEGs. Well, I can be really short about JPEGs. We're gonna have some cats. I hope you guys are into cats. I thought this is the internet. This is my first time on the internet. We should have some cats. What's the orange W icon? If I tell you that, I will get executed. I cannot talk about that. I will have to murder you if I tell you that. So JPEGs, I can be really short about it. JPEGs don't hold transparency. So yeah, that's all. PNGs are a very common image format that's used for transparency. Whenever working with a transparent image, with just a still image, I would advise you to use PNGs because they're very lightweight to use. And for example, by doing this, you can make a cat fountain, because who doesn't want a cat fountain in their lives? I love cat fountains. Another image format that does hold transparency is the TIFF format. It is possible. This is the same, but like I said, I prefer PNG because it's more lightweight. This cat is maybe 500 kilobytes, and this TIFF image is 50 megabytes. So yeah, the only reason why you would use probably TIFFs is if you want to upload an image sequence from 3D software. Next classroom video will be on sources, and I will touch on that subject as well. But this cat can still be used to make, not this time, not a fountain, but we make a cat mutant. If we look at animated GIFs, they can hold an alpha value. In this case, this actually says it has one, but it doesn't. So it really depends on when it depends on what you download or how you export it. So this is a GIF that has a alpha. Is it true that you should use DXV codec even for images? Not necessarily. Resolume runs pretty well on the PNGs and the JPEGs. Maybe if you have a really big sized image that you would like to use, it might be smarter to do that. Now, what if you have a footage like our dances we had previously? It has no alpha value, but you do want to give it an alpha value. There's a few options for that. The first one is our auto mask effect. You can find it in the effects bar. I'll turn it on. This is the default, I think, almost default settings, and this would basically take the darkness away. Takes the darkness away from you, and you can mess around with it. So it will either create this alpha from your luminance, channels, which is basically the luminance, the brightness of your video. And if it would take the red, you can already see it's getting a little bit more messy. And if I would take blue, for example, it would probably do a bad job. Oh, it's actually quite okay. So yeah, auto mask is always the first step I take when I want to create a transparent image, but it doesn't have any transparency. Alternatively, you can use a chroma key. another GIF. Chroma key is basically green screening. So if I turn this, it's a pretty big effect. I'll touch later on it how it exactly works. But you can cue out a certain color. This is mostly useful when you're when you have a green screen or a blue screen or whatever. But there are some creative uses for it as well. Crop also creates alpha, as you can see. This image has a border. Crop it. Here it's getting cropped from the sides. If I bypass it, you can still see the lines. Remove the bypass, and now we have a pretty much fully alpha image from an image that does not have an alpha mode. Chroma key needs an eyedropper. It doesn't have. It should have. Thank you for noting that. It should have that. I'll let them know. Last option, there's already some people asking about blend modes, is setting a blend mode to Luma key and then taking the layer a little bit down, and you can see this is just a very small tip. If I take it down further, the video really starts to degrade, but just a little bit. And this will basically key out on basis of the luminescence of the content of the footage. So these are just 3 ways you can create your transparent footage without having it being transparent. So let's move on to our next subject. That will be color theory. So without getting did I just say GIF? I did. I'm GIFing all day. Color theory. So without getting a completely our Arena accepts alpha videos from an NDI source. I think Zoltan will give you an answer for that. So a very small talk about, color theory in general. The way I like to think about color in my VJ content is as a way to create a focus. If we look, we're going to look at some really old paintings now. So yeah, Last Supper, very familiar picture, painting. Here they use color to create a color, as well as lighting, as well as perspective to draw attention on the center, our center, Jesus. He's the only one in the picture wearing red. This is the kind of stuff you can use in your. This is mostly useful when you're creating content yourself, that there's a certain color that stands off from the rest of the colors to draw your attention in. Some more applied VJ theory. I want to look at this clip. I think this clip is perfectly fine as it is, but as we are VJs, we like to add stuff and we like to mess with things. And I want to make sure you have a few things in your mind when you're meddling with your content. The first thing I want to talk about is something that I personally always do when I'm playing a live show. Is on my composition, I add the brightness effect, so the brightness contrast. Why do I do this? Because some of your content can be very bright, and the light output of your projector is higher than the light output of the lights in the venue. What I always urge, and I think Steve talked about it a few weeks ago as well, you need to play with the light show, together with the light guy. Often as a VJ you're sitting next to him, so that's at least in my experience, you're sitting next to him, so that makes the deal a little bit easier. But if you notice that you have a very bright image and the lights of the show are dimming, I always have this button mapped to a MIDI controller, and I can always tone it a little bit down, a little bit less brightness. Just very little shift in brightness. I don't mess with the contrast. I rarely turn it up. If you MIDI map, you can also say that it only goes down. And the second effect I always have on is the U rotate effect. And this is, for me, this is important because if I'm playing a show and I don't know what the light guy is going to do. Sometimes if you have a big show for a certain artist, you will have like a planned out light and video show. But if you're just playing a club, you will be just, you know, improvising all the way. And if then the lights change, I will use the hue rotate to match. You can use this to match the colors of the venue. So if the color turns red, root time light on the animate. Yeah, animate rotate. Yes, and you can even saturate it up a little bit if needed. But this is a very quick way to switch. Let's go for disco. Oh, there's somebody who wants disco. Well, you could. We can go. We can go. Oh, the other way around. Yeah, this way you can make your instant. You have your instant disco using hue rotate. And everybody goes crazy after a while. So these are basically my two master color and master light that I tweak with when playing live in a set that it's semi improvised. That's something to keep in mind. Talking about disco, I think this is a good one to get into. When I started VJing, I really liked flashy, disruptive stuff. So if it was timelined, I wanted it to have a random, and I wanted to have a short interval. I don't want everything to go like crazy. This is awesome, except for there's also an audience who has eyes. I like to see it in a way that the eye needs something first off to focus on, like what I just showed with the painting, but the eye also needs some rest. Also looking at this content, for example, I'm using right now, there's light and darkness in it, not just full-on colors, full-on heavy everything. I was a huge criminal in the beginning of my VJing career, doing this a lot, like flashy, and if it had an effect, it probably can use more effects, but you have to play with the light, you have to play with the music, and you have to play also with the venue is also something to take into consideration, which brings me to the subject of just before the drop. Yes, brings us to the subject of a stage design. For example, if you're this is for King's Day. It's a festivity in the Netherlands where we have everything in orange. It's not a good idea to go there and have all your footage in bright pink or something, because these colors, they don't match and they're really ugly together. So that's something to take into consideration. So the light, the stage, the music, it all has to fit into your in your show. I would love for the BPM to go over 500, but your screen is 60 frames per second. Does it even work that way? I don't know. Less is more. Yeah, that's out. But getting really crazy and glitchy and breaking everything, that's great before a drop. Some people are already saying this. It's already a good thing to have. For example, in one of the tutorials I did recently, I think it was the VST video, we made a destruction button in that tutorial. So that's a great thing to do when there's a drop coming up and you add a strobe to it and a distortion and shift glitch, and you rotate, you turn everything up to 100. When the drop comes, you turn it back, and your visuals continue. So a little thing I wanted to talk about as well is called color harmony. Color harmony is basically let's take a quick look at the comments. Is there a good trick to use hue rotate and always have the blue coming out without putting the scale? You can use hue rotate in a combination with other light effects to probably get that done. Color harmony I wanted to talk about, and basically color harmony is when two or more colors that fit nicely together. It's the same when you go in the morning and you dress and you want to have clothes that fit sort of together. The same is with your footage. And there's a bunch of harmonies that exist. The Adobe Color Wheel I showed before is a great way to find some of these color combinations. And we're going to run through a few of them. And like I said, I made presets for this that you can download in the comments as well, and add them to your preset map, and then you'll have them for your colorize effects. Get into harmony. Yeah, that's good. What Steve is saying there. The presets that I'm using, for example, this is the monochromatic preset. If you use then, the color palette will be in blue. But if you don't want it in blue, you rotate it in a color that you do want. So that's how I intended the presets to be used. So you add a preset, which might be blue or green or whatever, and then use the rotate to get it into a color that you want. Currently, this is of course in one color because this is a monochromatic, but they all work on all the videos. So talking about monochromatic clips, monochromatic is basically when I should stop reading comments and continue talking. The monochromatic is when you use, let me pop up the color wheel, pop up the monochromatic. You take a color and you take the shades of that color. So if it's red, it's multiple shades of red, green, multiple shades of green. If you go gray, you can go 50 shades of gray and get all kinky. So in this case, this is an example of a piece of content with a monochromatic scale. It's very clear, very it gives you as a viewer, you get a nice overview of what you're doing, of what you're watching. Same as the clip I just showed you, also a monochromatic blue blue color scheme. And here, this is a piece of footage I will be using throughout with the colorize effect on it. Because the cool thing about the colorize effect in Resolume is you can put it on, if you have it normally on, it starts on a color mode and it just shifts to whatever color, it completely gets colorized. But if you use a palette, it takes these colors and it distributes them over the luminescence of the video. So if I take a bit of a funky one, and now the colors are all distributed over all these layers of gray and white and black. So that's why I'm using it for this one. Let's switch back to the monochromatic. Yes, and it's back. And again, you can use the whole hue rotate to shift it to different colors. There's a good question. How do you load XML color palette into Resolume? That's a very good question. Let me explain that as well. If you go under your documents in your computer, and then it's probably on a Windows, it would be Documents, Resolume, Presets, Color Palettes. And there you can just copy and paste the presets that I have made for you. That's where they will live. I don't know where they live on a Mac, but probably something similar. Then we move on to the next one. This is called Anagalash. I cannot pronounce this word. Basically here you take a color and you take the shades, 2 shades up and 2 shades down on the hue spectrum. So you get colors that fit together. They're somewhat analogous. How do you pronounce it? Somebody can correct me in the comments how you pronounce the word analogous. And you can shift around, finding colors that are edging, bordering each other. And that's what I did here as well. So I took a color and they all border. They're not a shade of purple, but they are basically brothers of the Brothers of the Purple. Brothers of the Purple, that sounds like a good good fantasy movie. And shifting to it as well, you can see it. I pronounced it correct. Yes, very happy about that. Moving on to the next one. This is called a triad. Let's look at the triad as well in the color wheel. Yeah, it puts a triangle on the color wheel, and it's equally distanced from each other. This color wheel is an amazing resource. Yes, it absolutely is. It's awesome. I use this a lot to create palettes for Resolume, because you can also move further in and you can get these how you call this, pastel kind of colors. And I think that's more my personal opinion, but these kind of colors, these pastel colors, are not used that much in VJing in general. I think they are considered maybe a little bit too cute or something, but they can work pretty well. I think it's cool. So yeah, and here using the triad colors, also a little bit into the pastel colors. I wanted to go there. I think it looks a pretty cool color scheme for it. Some problems. Let's move on to the next one, complementary. This is the most common known color harmony. It's used everywhere, and it's basically colors that are opposite of each other on the color wheel. But again, you can also shift, of course, these in. This is something you will use probably a lot. And this clip, it's not even this clip. I didn't put any effects on because it already has its from natural. It's blue is an opposite of yellow, and it shifts through. Here we have some green. And I wanted to show this clip because it's pretty monochromatic. It's pretty greenish. Opposite side of green would be red. And then there's a variation on this clip which uses this red, but in a subtle way. Or no, it's not that subtle, but it comes in as sort of an accent. So that's also a way to think about these color palettes, that they're not mathematical equations. So it's not, you don't need to have 50% red, 50% green, for example. I think you shouldn't. There should be some, there should be one dominant color. Again, coming back to what I talked about before, having focus, using one color to draw in the focus, and then use the other colors as accents. And here is how the complementary would look on your on our head. Then there's something called split complementary. The words are getting more difficult and difficult. And let's check, we also have it here. It would take you take the opposite of the color and then move to the left and right of it. Again, cool color scheme you can use. Moving on, I think we're almost at the end of the color schemes. Tetraitic. When using the tetraitic colors, I believe it's a cross. In the Adobe color wheel, it's called a square. So you use the colors that are exact opposites of each other twice. Now the Adobe color scheme color palette has some stuff called double split complementary and compound and shades. This is all stuff you can, I didn't make presets for it, but this is something you can query quickly and create your own presets with. There are some cool effects in there as well. One thing that's not in the Adobe preset Adobe color wheel, but it is considered a color harmony, is called natural. And when you're using natural colors, you're using black, white, grays, and browns. It is really cool. I think this clip might actually be one of the coolest sort of gradients over this footage I have made. The problem with it, probably in a VJ context, is that it's it's too calm. It's not rock and roll enough, I think. I don't know. I've never used natural color schemes in my VJing, but maybe some of you have or have success. Maybe if you're doing a Earth Live concert or something like that, this could be useful. And then of course we are VJs and we do our own things. We are basically the rock stars behind every rock star. You can always say screw harmony. This is red combined with pink or purple. This should not mix. Red and purple are considered one of the worst offenders of not going together very well. My footage looks like it's bubblegum, but that might be useful to have bubblegum. And I just took this and I just started. I thought, okay, I need more bubblegum, so I put a saturation effect over it, more bubblegum. Then I twitched it, making it did. I put an auto mask on it, and then a cloner. And then even though I'm using a color scheme that should not work, I think it works pretty cool. Channel theories. Oh no. Channel theories on what the W screams is. Cannot talk about that. Playing with the hue scale yes, that's true. When you're using the hue saturation effect, using the hue scale can be a big effect in moving from something with multiple colors, and you say I want to tone it down. You can turn the hue scale down, and now you can rotate normally. So this is a quick way to switch between schemes. So yeah, but you can also just say screw harmony and go rock and roll like this. Somebody had pastels on LED screens. Oh, they suck on LED screens. I've never tried it. So yeah, don't use pastels on LED screens. I didn't know that. We move on. That was the part for the color harmony. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about the color effects we have in Resolume. We have a bunch of them, a lot of color effects, and I will just simply run through all of them, explaining what you can use them for and how they work if they're any complicated. Just understand the color mixing when using an RGB, that you have the red and green makes yellow. Red and blue makes pink, green and blue makes cyan, and the three of them make white. That's important to understand when you're moving through these effects. First effect we'll look at is the add subtract effect. You can see this as a bigger brother of the channels you can turn on and off. Because now you have control over how much you turn it off. If I turn this to minus 100%, I take out 100% of my red channel, and it has the same effect as turning off a channel. So this way I can mix when taking colors off. Alternatively, you can use the add subtract, it's called add as well, to add color to it, but you will quickly see that your scene starts to colorize also the blacks. So I tend to use this more as a subtractive tool than an additive tool, because I like the blacks to stay black again, putting some, giving the eye some relief when looking at the content. I'm sure, just to make sure to use the color palette from the Adobe website. No, you do not download anything from the Adobe website. The color palette I use on the Adobe website. I use just as a reference tool to use the color picker to create these palettes in Resolume, and you can download the palettes I made and in this video description, and then import them in Resolume. Moving on, brightness contrast. I already showed this off previously. You can increase the brightness of your content. but also the contrast. I tend to use this when I'm using content, more like video stuff that gets sent to me, which is just filmed with a camera, to make it fit better in a club environment, because you need that contrast will make the bright things brighter and the dark things darker. So that can really help in a club situation. We move on to the chroma key. I already showed a little bit of this. Let's run through it. So the key hue is basically which hue you want to turn off. So in this, if we look at this whole clip, I bypass the effect now. We have the blues. Let's say I want to take out the blues. I'll move to the blues a little bit. You can show the masks to see what you are actually eliminating right now. The threshold can be increased. We're losing a little bit already. We have some softness. So moving it too much. And the whites. And the black. So basically you will be tweaking this until you find your perfect settings. Of course, this is a bit of a bad clip to demonstrate this, but you can use these sliders all to just shift a certain color out. Now, if you have a clip in which you have multiple colors that you want to get rid of, it is possible to just add another chroma key on top of a chroma key, and then add a chroma key on top of a chroma key to filter out multiple colors. Color pass, it's a really simple effect. If you have ever watched these really terrible pictures of people in black and white holding a red apple, well, this is it. You set a range of colors that you want to have color in, and the rest, this is basically just a range you set. So I want only the blues, and then the other colors will desaturate. If I move it down and all the way, this would basically do nothing because the entire color range is selected. But moving this down, my blues here get desaturated. That's what the color pass effect do. You can make a selective color, and it has an invert. You can invert it. Colorize, I did a whole tutorial on the colorize effect a while ago, so I won't go into detail too much here. You can select a color and your whole content will colorize to it. But the big difference here between the subtract and add and the colorize is that the blacks are maintained. So that's the huge advantage of it. And yeah, the cool thing about this is of course that you can use a palette. As you might have noticed, I like using palettes, and now it doesn't preserve the black, and that's because there's no black in the palette. If I add a black in front of the palette, now it adds a black as well. That's something to be aware of the palettes that I shared with you guys. They all have a black as first color, because this way, if you have the black as first color, then the blacks stay black. If you would put white as the last color, the whites would stay white. You can invert it if you want, keep the grays, which in this case we do not want. And you can even create more contrast here as well. But the preset to 0.2 is pretty good. Moving on, delay RGB. Somebody said the hue rotate was the most used color, but I think this is always this is an effect I always gravitate to. This effect will separate your channels and delay it. So if I take the red channel here, it moves after the original content. Exposure, just make your footage lighter, like a footage of film camera kind of thing. Honestly, you can creatively use this in, for example, if you put an envelope on it, and it could be a 4 to the floor kind of thing. and then maybe set a range. Oh, probably the higher range. If this would be BPM synced, you could use it as a sort of a soft. You could use this as a soft strobe. I was looking for the word stroboscope, like a soft stroboscope effect. We have the heat map. Really old school. I just heard from one of the developers here. This was the first effect ever in that he ever made in Resolume. So that was cool. A little bit of a Resolume history. It takes your luminescent, the luminescency of the clip, and turns it into a heat map, like a heat camera would do. Moving on to the hue rotate. We already looked at it. So rotating the hue will change the colors. The saturation scale will make these colors brighter. And the scale is basically the relationship, how close they're staying to the color. So if I move this down, they shift more closely to each other. The colors are more shifted closer to each other. And if I turn it all the way down, it just becomes one color. So, but I tend to have it on one and rotate as we go. Invert. Really simple. It inverts the channels, but you can still mess with it. This is an effect that's often used on strobe-like effects as well to invert the video quickly. The levels effect is something that comes from also photography background. I tend to see this as more as a brightness, not really brightness, but more like a separate contrast effect with more fidelity. So you can get really detailed with what you want to get darker and what you want to get brighter. And there's a ratio between the two. This is probably a good effect if you're a talented photo editor or something, which I am not, so I'm not very capable with this effect, but this is what it does. Let's move on to the high pass. The high pass filter is literally a filter that will take a color, and as time moves on, no, I took the wrong color, sorry. It will start filtering it out. So if it's 1, the whole red channel is basically taken down. It's not taken down, it's filtered out. So this way you can filter out colors. And if you have some footage like this one that has a lot of movement in it, you can get some pretty cool effects with it. Nice. Yes. That's the high pass effect. Posterize, really simple. It posterizes your footage. Yeah, not much more to say about the posterization effect, except that after you posterize, you can use saturated again and change it. The recolor effect, another really old Resolume effect. You can sort of see it as a modular version of the heat map. So you will pick a palette. These palettes are preset. But as you know now, this is a monochromatic palette. So you have learned something today. Let's keep it to the 0 on this palette. The floor and ceiling basically mean how far they go into the minimum and maximum color. I tend to keep this at 1 and 0 when I'm using this. A face will cycle through which colors get colorized, but the cool stuff is at the cycle speed, which will do this automatically for you. And this way we get really funky glaciers. Now again, if you would use this effect but you don't like the blue, you would simply rotate it afterwards. That's the recolor. Saturation, probably already familiar with. basically saturates or desaturates your footage. To the point that it actually starts to creating artifacts. I hope you can see it on the stream as well, but this is getting pretty artifacty for me. Sometimes this is what you want, then I use saturation. And if you want to get really crazy, you can stack saturation on top of each other. Do people still use that, the recolor effect? Probably not. I think the colorize effect with the palettes is way more powerful and more specific, but it exists, and I just want to run through all the effects that are here. Shift RGB will allow you to shift channels apart from each other, similar like the delay RGB. I tend to like this effect a lot, and it has different modes, so you can shift on the X rotation, you can shift on the Y axis, even on the Z, and you can even zoom different channels out. What I like to do with this effect is just basically shift X and create a really small increment on both sides to create sort of a color, I think it's called a color aberration, if I correctly, and it resembles a little bit like a destructed, like there's something wrong with the signal, combined with distortion and combined with some glitching. You can get some really glitchy, broken VHS stuff going on. Solid color, that's something we all know as a source, but it's also in Resolume as an effect. And it will turn your footage entirely into one color. No, it's actually a pretty cool effect, but you need to use the opacity slider. If you use the opacity slider, it's basically just a colorize effect. It layers, the solid color gets layered over the video. But then when you start using different blend modes specifically for this clip, for example, I like hard light in this case, you can get some pretty cool colorization effects really quickly, really easy way. It's also great to use on video, or if you need to create a quick background, show image will bypass it. So yeah, solid color. Last two effects. Let's move on to the threshold. Also a well-known Photoshop-ish effect. Will turn your content black and white, and a threshold to what gets turned black and what gets turned white. You can actually create your own colors in here. So if you would say I want a threshold, but I want the white to be to become red, that's a possibility. But a recent addition to this effect was actually a smoothness slider. This will create a smooth transition between the black and the white, so it will introduce grays. All the way up, it's almost a desaturation effect. But what I like about this, over just using the saturation effect and putting it to a -1, is that you can tweak how you want to desaturize your content, and it gives you way more options in desaturating than just black and white. Let's see if we can get some cool stuff going here. And this is all just, yeah, you experiment and you play. And I think that's a big part of the VJing experience. And we move on to our last effect of the day, which is the tint effect. It will take your blacks and it will take your whites and it will shift them to a different color. So in this case, we can make new color schemes like this. You could do this with a U rotate, but this is just way more, just pick one, pick two, and you're done. So that's the tint effect, and that's the last of the effects I wanted to show to you today. I've been talking for a good hour now. So far the Resolume Classroom for today. Let's see if there are some questions that I can quickly answer some questions. If you have some questions, post them now. Recolor cycle is kind of cool. Yeah, I like it too. didn't check out that effect in a long time. This was a little bit like a reinvention of some of these effects. As you VJ a lot, at some point you get into these effects that you're always using. I'm very I do that. And going through all of these was interesting to see, oh, cool, I can use that as well. Oh, I forgot that it even existed. So that's nice for this kind of stuff. You missed the start, doesn't matter. It will be uploaded. This video will be available and timestamped. Exposure versus brightness. Yeah, the algorithms behind it are a little bit different. So yeah, let's keep it short. Let's not extend this any longer. Thank you very much for attending this Resolume Classroom. There will be another classroom, and that will be next month. Yes. So thank you for showing up, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.